Hi, my name's Sherry Sanders, and I'm a county extension agent working in the field of agriculture in White County as a part of the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. And this is Agriculture. This series is meant to celebrate and empower women working in the field of agriculture in the state of Arkansas. This month's feature is Dr. Casandra Cox. She's an assistant professor here at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville in ag leadership and ag communication. And this is her story.
We started a horse operation that my dad and I had already had in northeast Arkansas. I had a bunch of brood mares, he had a stallion, so we transitioned to northwest Arkansas to their property and kind of went that route. And we did that for several years. But at one point, I was working trying to build my career because 1 year had then become 3 years and so forth and so on. Now it's been 20 years that I've been fortunate enough to be here. But I left work. I always packed meals for my son because he did stay with my parents. They were our paid daycare providers. So that was another blessing they brought to northwest Arkansas for us. I fed my son dinner, loaded him in my truck at that point in time. He was a little fussy, ready for bed, and I was like, I still have farm chores to do. So I loaded the barn cat in with him, and the barn cat babysat him while I drove around and filled waters, fed horses, checked everything that was happening. And that was kind of my epiphany moment that maybe I wasn't going to be able to be in production agriculture, and that this role that I had at the University of Arkansas as an agricultural communications and agricultural leadership instructor would be my route, that if I could continue to be renewed on my contract, that was my way that I would make that impact on the industry. That while I'm one person in industry, or would have been, here I have an opportunity to influence all of my students, and my reach I feel is pretty strong. I often say things like, oh, my student, or this person who's connected to my student, my former student, blah, blah, blah. And I talk about the ag industry or opportunity to connect our students for networking in those areas. So I really feel positive about the fact that this is a bigger network, and that I'm able to use that network to advance my students in the industry. My chief thing is that regardless of if you're like me and you're never going to have the funding to have a production ag system, you know, maybe one of these days I'll have a hobby farm again and a few head of cattle and some chickens and some things like that, and continue to raise my garden and maybe send those things out to my community. Even if you're not headed down the production agriculture route, you can advance agriculture through these communication aspects, being a good consumer of information, and just investing in understanding what did the process look like for my food, my clothing, my fiber, everything that goes into the ag industry to get there, including food safety concepts. And so as you're looking on social media, which is everywhere today, I think it's really important to look at who's putting the message out, what's their motivation for putting that message out, and fact check. Don't assume that anything that you're seeing out there about any aspect of life really on social media is accurate. Entertainment value is part of social media, so it doesn't necessarily guarantee accuracy. So think about, is my information that I'm receiving accurate, or is it misinformation? Someone accidentally spread a concept. And again, Extension did a great job with this. And Enoch, a PhD student at the University of Arkansas, is really doing some great work in this area, learning and teaching people about misinformation. For instance, the lobes on the bell pepper and the work that came out of Extension where they address that as part of their social media. I think that that's key, that you consume the information and you check it before you send it out. We don't want to spread misinformation. And then the second part is, there are groups that are trying to persuade us and make emotional appeals through disinformation. They're putting out false information about the industry and food safety and all of these concepts. So regardless, we are all participants in the ag industry. We should make sure that we're checking that messaging before we spread it, or we allow someone to influence us in a disinformation kind of way. My kids, I use this with them, that if they told me something, I always ask them, where did you get this information from? Because they would always speak it like it was the gospel, and they would know that they needed to have their source ready for me beforehand, because I think it was a key piece of what I need to do as a parent to get them prepared to be good citizens And I think we all have to be good citizens regardless of whether we're directly involved in agriculture or we're just consumers of agriculture. So I think that's one way. And then the second way is don't limit what your involvement in agriculture is. It's something that we've chatted about in our indirect discussions all around, and that is that everyone who's involved in the industry, who contributes to the industry of agriculture, regardless of whether they're driving the tractor or they're AIing the cattle, they can be contributors to agriculture and have a key role. So don't limit that perspective. If you have questions, you want to get involved, again, I'm a big supporter of extension. Talk to county extension agents. They can explain to you different ways you can be involved, even if you're not in production ag. Reach out to universities, reach out to producers in the communities, and begin to learn what that role might look like. We need everybody for agriculture to survive and thrive and support what's happening in our world.